All right, you guys, welcome to Sovereign and Strong, How to See Beauty in Chaos, Shift Your Consciousness, and Create Peace Within. I'm Clarissa Yeager, your host, and our guest today is the brilliant Aloise Surfleet Middleton. Aloise is a transformational teacher and serial entrepreneur. She's the co-creator of the Network for Transformational Leaders, a fully trained Reiki master and NLP practitioner. She launched and hosts the Dharma Life podcast, and her coaching and the podcast both demystify Dharma for people by sharing real life stories and how people are following the bliss in their lives. The Dharma Life podcast mission is to inspire a generation of change makers to follow their passion and purpose and make a difference on the planet, which is so needed right now. Welcome, Aloise.
Oh, thank you so much. Wonderful to be with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. You're such a light, and I knew that I wanted you on this series. So thank you so much for being here. You have so much to give to humanity right now.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that, I did a little bit of research on you, and from your bio, I think it's super interesting what your journey has been like. So I would love it if you could share a little bit about that with the viewers and how you came to be doing the current work that you're doing right now.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. Well, thank you, first of all, for the introduction. And welcome to everybody listening. So wonderful to get connected. When I look back on my past, I realize now I've kind of been in training for this moment in time all my life. And it's why I came. And already, I've got confirmation, some of our most difficult experiences in our lives set us up for the person we're supposed to be and the person we're supposed to become. And at a young age, I had a nervous breakdown at 21, and I suffered with drug and alcohol problems. I wanted to take my own life, early 20s on a regular occasion, and really had very chronic depression. And it was a pattern that ran in my family. And I'm sure many people listening to this can relate that we are the generation that came to break these patterns. There are so much in the family lines, whether it be abuse, alcoholism, depression, and our generation stepped up to the plate and volunteered to come down to break those cycles. But it was the best training that I ever experienced because it taught me how our thoughts create our reality. So consequently, between 21 and 28, I suffered with very bad chronic depression. I was floating up out of my body. I, as I said, had very, very regular kind of thoughts about not being on the planet anymore. I felt very disconnected. I couldn't understand what the purpose of life was. Was that it? I'm 20, I was in a very high paying job. I was supposed to be happy, but I was a woman in a man's world. And I had all the trappings of success. You hear this story a lot. And it's true, it wasn't fulfilling me and I didn't really understand why. And so I distracted myself. I went out, I was young. But at 28, it all came to kind of a head, so to speak. I had a simultaneous Saturn's return with my mother. And for those of you listening who may not have come across that term, essentially Saturn returns to our chart at the age of 27, 28, and it kind of marks us going into adulthood. And so often we can get a big event that essentially wakes us up or essentially bridges us into being an adult. And in my case, my mother tried to commit suicide, and I had a phone call at work to say she'd gone missing. Rushed home to be with my family, picked up my sister, picked up my boyfriend at the time. Boyfriend at the time was a paramedic. No coincidences there. And we arrived in my living room and the policeman was asking my dad, he was clutching a suicide note, and he was saying to my dad, has your mum ever tried to commit suicide before? I say no, my dad says yes. And at that point in time, my paradigm shattered. I discovered that my mum had tried to commit suicide twice before in my life, and no one had told me at 28. And then I discovered we had this huge history of depression running through our family down the female side. My grandmother We'd had bipolar, we'd had suicides, and again, all news to me. And it was very much a breakdown to breakthrough moment. I couldn't take it all in because I had to go and find her. And we went to look for her, and we ended up at these woods at the back of my house. And there's this place, Caretha, where you can turn left, you can turn right. And it was like, well, where do we go? And I basically, my sister was asking me, well, which way do we go? And I suddenly got a voice in my head, basically say, turn right. So I said, we need to turn right. And my sister said, how do you know? And I was like, I don't know. I'm being told to turn right. And this voice guided us to where my mother had taken an overdose. And luckily for me, she was out, but she was in there somewhere. My boyfriend stayed with her. I called the ambulance, ran for the ambulance. At the time, I was smoked, I drank, I was taking drugs, I was overweight, I was unhappy. And I just remember running for the ambulance saying, I'll do anything, whoever and whatever that was, I promise I'll sort myself out. Just please help her. And we got her to the ambulance, we got her to the hospital. She was okay. I was in shock for quite a long period of time, but it was a very big wake up call, suddenly having a voice in your head like that, and actually it sent me down a rabbit hole of trying to understand where this voice had come from. And then I started to get into psychics. I started to get into personal development. I started to really take the control back in my life. And it probably took me from 28 to say 32 to kind of climb out of the toxicity and the environment I built around me. But it turned me into the woman you're talking to today, because it just gave me this huge driving force that I wanted to help other people. Because depression, now I understand, is something that we can all manage and we can all cure and we can all take charge of. And actually it's a lot to do with how we imprison ourselves with our own thoughts. So it was very good training. And consequently, I also feel like it's given me the training of understanding really what's happening on our planet at the moment. But that's a bigger topic.
It's a big topic. Thank you so much for sharing that powerful journey, powerful, intense journey. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I love how you said, sometimes you have to break down to break through, because I think that is so key to what a lot of people are experiencing right now.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add that I think, for anybody listening who's suffering with depression, please know there's hope, because, I suffer chronically for 8-9 years, and I've cured. I never have it now, ever. So, that's an area that I love to support people with, because obviously it's my own journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And another powerful thing that you said was that we can imprison ourselves in our own minds with our thoughts, which is part of depression, but it's part of a lot of other things too, as far as intense emotions and conflict and things like that.
We get kind of given this model of the world that we're supposed to be and look and have our lives a certain way, and then if we don't measure up, we can potentially inflict self-harm on ourselves. For me, I was 32, 33 and not married, and everybody else is settled down and married, and you're kind of like the story in your head is, what's wrong with me? Why everybody else and not me? So it's breaking all of that stuff down to realize there's nothing wrong with us, and actually some of us don't have that traditional classic path, and that's okay.
Absolutely. And I resonate with that very strongly, because I was that way too. I didn't get married in my 20s and late 30s, and I've always been outside of the norm a little bit too. So I really support those people who say, don't play the comparison game. It's not, it doesn't serve you. Everybody gets to shine in their own way, and you are definitely shining. That's for sure. The name of your podcast is the Dharma podcast, the Dharma Life podcast, excuse me. And for those people who don't know what Dharma is, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Well, I studied so much, once I went into the rabbit hole, I kind of went into spirituality, I went into personal development, and I started interviewing people around the subject of purpose, because uncovering our purpose and feeling satisfied and fulfilled, is so imperative to having a wonderful life. And I started interviewing people on how they'd uncovered their purpose. And very quickly, I realized that I wanted to write a program around it. And, as what generally happens when you're on the right path, the right people pop up. And my teacher is a gentleman called Chris Atwood. He has studied the Vedic texts. He wrote oh my goodness, it popped out of my head now. He and his wife are kind of New York Times bestsellers, and they will talk all about purpose. And effectively, he had also studied the Vedic texts and the subject of Dharma, and it really interested me. So Dharma means the right path of action, and what the Vedic texts talk about is that essentially we're all pieces of the bigger puzzle, and all of us have a role to play in making this world the place that we want to live in. And society reflects the consciousness, or society will reflect the consciousness of its inhabitants. So the higher the consciousness, the better the planet, effectively. And so what the Dharmic texts talk about is actually there's a very simple methodology and a simple way of living that you can live and be in alignment with your right path of action. And it gives almost like a handbook for living. And most people, that's kind of the major question that you hear people have, why am I here? What's my purpose? And there's a lot of misnomers around Dharma and purpose. A lot of people think that you're going to wake up one day and you're going to, oh, that's why I'm here, and what the Dharmic texts teach us and tell us is actually your Dharma is an unfolding adventure. And your purpose will evolve over the course of your life. But if you can understand that you access your Dharma through your talents and your passions, your passions really are the gateway into you doing what you are supposed to be doing. So I studied this with Chris, and it was like, wow, it's so simple, yet absolutely groundbreaking. Like I look back at my life and I could see the times when I was in alignment with my Dharma, when I was out of alignment with my Dharma, and I was like, why do people not know this stuff? It's so important. It could literally change people's lives in an instant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a great answer. And I think you're right. People get so confused and make it more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah, and the Dharmic teachings, tell us that we're always being guided, and essentially our excitement is our compass and our resistance is the brake. So just to give people listening a little, let's do a little exercise, because I think it's always fun to actually learn and understand this stuff. I want you to think about a relationship or a job that you've stayed in too long. And most people, it's easier to think of the negative than yet generally the positive. So let's do it, Clara. Claritha, sorry. Can you think of a job or a relationship that you maybe stayed in a bit too long?
Absolutely. Lots of jobs.
Lots of jobs. So how did that job make you, can you think about like how you felt getting out of bed about going to those jobs?
Definitely not excited. It felt like a chore.
Yes.
It didn't bring me up, it brought me down.
And what were the thoughts stopping you leaving?
That I didn't know what I was going to do next, that at least I knew there was some sort of financial security that was available to me. And what if I made the wrong choice?
Perfect. So what you just described there is what 99% of humans experience. Our thoughts basically get in the way and we contract and we say, oh my goodness, I don't know what's coming next. But actually, if we understood that those feelings are essentially a sat nav. So as soon as you start to get the feeling, say you come away, if you're listening to this and you're going to your job and I would say, I don't know, 80% of you doesn't want to be there, then that you have to listen to. And And if we can be true to ourselves when we live our life, like if we can always be honoring how we feel about a situation, a relationship, a job, it's so simple.
Mm-hmm.
And take away the thoughts, because obviously our mind likes to keep us safe. Our mind likes to be predictable. It likes to know what's happening. But if we can trust that that is internal sat nav, and the voice from above, our spirit is always, our higher self is always guiding us, then we can stay on that optimal timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that is such a great navigation tool. And it's so simple, like you said, how do you create a life of bliss and passion? And it's just by following what resonates with you, right?
Absolutely. And we have to kind of unlearn everything we've been taught, because society's taught us stay safe, get the job, get the career, don't take risks, and parents generally don't want that. They want their children to be secure. Whereas actually that is a recipe for a mundane life, whereas having the confidence and the understanding more so, because if we are teaching our children that actually, no, that's not how this works. You really just need to listen to yourself. Like my stepdaughters, 18 and 21, and this is the conversation we have on a regular basis. Their dad's saying, oh no, you should stay in the job. And I'm saying, no, leave.
Everybody needs that person in their life that like pushes them out of the nest a little bit and encourages them to trust their heart.
Yeah, and of course, in their case, they want to go traveling and they want to do seasons in Ibiza and they want to go to Bali, and I'm like, go for it. And my husband would be like, well, what about the money, and what about them getting a house? And I'm like, look, if they're on their optimal timeline, money is never an option.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're listening to this, when you do your Dharma, when you're on your right path of action, you are always taken care of. But of course, it's the uncertainty that humans don't like to live with. So we play small, we don't take the risk, we don't take the jump, we stay until it gets to a breaking point where we're forced to leave. You hear about the person that said, I was made redundant and it was awful at the time, but it was the best thing ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that struggle is there for a reason, and everybody has that point where it's more uncomfortable to stay where you are versus take the first step out into something new. And I like how you mentioned your optimal timeline. Can you kind of explain that for people?
Yeah, of course. Well, it's very topical with what we're talking about at the moment. So I'd love to talk about, because obviously I know one of the driving factors of you putting this on was to support people in the current environment. And I think, just to kind of give a synopsis, we are in an incredibly exciting time on the planet. The frequency of our planet is lifting and shifting, and that Mother Gaia has made the decision that she wants to ascend. So we're going whether we like it or not. Now, the wonderful thing about that is we are essentially shifting into higher dimensions. And when you shift into higher dimensions, all of the kind of darkness, all of your stuff that you haven't healed will come up, but also anything out of alignment comes up for you to look at. So you could be listening to this and you might be finding that since lockdown, stuff has just gone, oh my goodness, crazy. You might be seeing your life in a completely different way, because as the veil lifts, we get more clarity, we get more consciousness. And suddenly I'm seeing people who've been in a relationship 17 years turn around and say, I just can't do this anymore. I've realized that it's not right for me. And so if you're facing a decision like that, it could be the job, it could be the relationship, it could be just something that isn't bearable for you anymore. Please know you're not alone. And this is kind of indicative of what is happening on the planet right now, because anything out of alignment with our highest version of ourselves is coming up for us to look at and sort out. So it could be where you live, it could be who you live with, think about what's working and think about where you're compromised or where you're settling, okay? Now, the universe, as it moves, as it ascends upwards, is forcing everybody to basically sort their lives out.
Yeah.
And so really the best thing that you can do right now is get very clear on how you want your life to look. And there's a real opportunity to create and live your own heaven on earth. And I think one of the best things about having such a breakdown at such an early age is it flushed everything out almost for me to really look at what I wanted. And so, I consider myself very lucky now because I'm doing the work that I completely love. I have a partner that I genuinely I'm not settling. I get to run this organization. I get to run a healing and workshops, and I kind of was forced to sort everything out now. And I know now that that's because now I get to help others do the same. If you can dream it, you can do it. You just need to have support.
I love that. And I love that you said it's how we create heaven on earth for us here now, because this is the time to reassess, for sure.
Yeah. And I think as well, there's two parts to this. It's like, by you being in alignment as an individual, that means that you're in a higher vibrational state, and that impacts the planet. And Dharma talks about everybody, when you do your Dharma will be in service to others. And of course, as we go into this fifth dimensional energy, it's all about unity consciousness, and it's all about being of service to others. The third dimension was very much service to self, but our purpose in some way, shape or form is to serve and help other people. And so by you being in alignment, by you doing your Dharma, you're actually serving the collective.
I thank you for bringing up the unity consciousness, because that's such an important concept right now for people to get, while things feel very separated for many people. But the unity consciousness is actually the truth. Yeah, that's wonderful. And forgetting the other question that I had for you, but what is one practice that you think that the audience can take away right now to help them sort of connect with their Dharma?
Yeah, sure. Well, the kind of formula for your Dharma is your passions, plus your unique gifts and talents, plus service to others. So the simplest thing to do is really think about what you would be doing if time and money were no object. And the things that you are passionate about aren't random. So I'll give you an example. I've been running a non-profit organization for the last 9 years for transformational leaders. And if I look at it now, it was everything that I was truly, truly passionate about. Like, I absolutely fell in love with personal development and helping other people, and also running communities and running networks. And so it kind of ticked all of my boxes that I would end up doing that. And of course, when you're doing something you truly love, it doesn't feel like work. You can do it, just keep doing it and doing it just because you find it absolutely fascinating. Mm-hmm. And so I think looking for that flow state, where is it that what is it you can read and read and read about, or where is it you lose time? Like one of the guys in our community, he's a very successful artist, but he was told at a very young age that he couldn't be an artist because it wasn't a proper career. And he actually, interestingly enough, went through a very bad breakup. And when he went through the bad breakup, he picked up his pencils and started drawing as a kind of way of relief. And then obviously he came into our Dharma Life community. And again, we shifted his mindset around what was acceptable and what was possible. And he quit his corporate job and is now a full-time artist. And he recently, just before lockdown, he exhibited at the Tate Modern, which is a very kind of, prestigious gallery in the UK. So what you believe, you create about life. So whatever you believe to be possible for your life is what you will end up doing. So the simplest thing to do is to think about what you would love to do, money and time, no object. And that's, if that's your dream, then we can make it happen.
I love that. Just simple advice and straight to the heart.
Yeah. And I think it's, you'll see what we're seeing now is it's impossible to be out of alignment. It's much more difficult. It's like the universe is saying, no, you can't do that anymore. You really have to have the courage. And again, all of us have been programmed into this we're not good enough stuff, and again, that is coming up for healing. We're coming up to integrate that, because it's not true. We are powerful, sovereign human beings, and we've been hidden from how powerful we are. Mm-hmm. And so we are really, I suppose, reconnecting with the fact that we are human creators. You know, we manifest and create our reality. So if you can have a vision for your life and you're committed in that direction, if you follow that excitement, you hear one of my favorite teachers is Bashar. He talks about the highest excitement. If you are literally doing everything that you truly love, you're following that highest excitement, your higher mind will bring you something even better than you kind of imagined. It's having that confidence to go for it. And that's, you know, one of the things we do in our academy, in our community, is we basically hold your hand while you do that.
That's amazing. Yeah, because it all comes from the inside out. There's that internal alignment that once it's in place, it flows out into your community and into humanity around you. Beautiful.
Yeah, and then what happens is that, you know, you activate yourself and then you go and activate others, you know, and this is how we get this beautiful ripple effect of people changing the world.
Yeah, I feel like this transition period that we're in right now is just lighting up so many people, and it's just everybody's turning on and turning brighter, and there's just this, like you said, the ripple effect happening.
Yeah. And I think the best way to look at it is if anything's not working, they're just signs. They're just signposts.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, I think as humans, we've been a bit too, oh, I shouldn't get anything wrong. But actually, when something breaks and something doesn't work, it's just a lesson, you know, and it's just a signpost that you need to change direction or do something differently. So when you have the courage to do that, when you have the courage to leave that job or leave that relationship, there's something better on the other side.
I like how you mentioned courage too, because it does take courage sometimes for people to take that first step. And yeah, I like how you mentioned just because something didn't work out, use it as a sign that it is okay to course correct at any point. Wonderful. Well, before we end today, Aloise has a free gift for you guys, which is amazing. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. Well, bearing in mind our conversation, you know, I thought it would be very helpful and useful for people to create a 5D life audit. So your 5D life is anything and everything you've ever dreamed, and it's truly possible for you to create. So what I did was created a 5D life audit so you could get real clarity on which areas of your life you really need to spend and pay attention to. So people are welcome to go onto my website, www.aloise.life, just in the background, you can see it. And basically take that free life audit, and it will kind of give you almost like step-by-step advice on how you can make those changes.
Thank you so much. I think that is one of the most useful tools that right now that we can use to help ourselves elevate and to help humanity and the consciousness evolve on the planet right now. So we will also include a link below in the email for that link also for you guys. So thank you so much for being here. I would love if the audience hit reply and let me know what resonated with them the most with this interview. And for Aloise, thank you so much for your conversation and your voice to this wonderful panel. I appreciate it, and I know the viewers appreciate it also.
Oh, thank you so much for everybody listening, and Claritha, thank you so much for the invite.
Yes, absolutely. And stay tuned for more interviews to help you be sovereign and strong.
Bye. Bye.